ex-wife is haunting me. Story time. I married my high school sweetheart, and honestly, I don't think I was the best husband, but what she has been doing to me has been tormenting me every single day. When I married her, obviously we made the vows that every couple will make. I will not cheat on you and everything. But as time went on, we had kids, and honestly, she was no longer as attractive as she was when I married her. So because of that and peer pressure from my friends, I found myself a side chick. She was a university student. She was quite young. She was about 30 years younger than me. But this girl really made me happy. And let me say I was loyal to my side chick. What that means is I didn't have any other side chick but her. When I met my side chick, she was about in grade 9. I understand she was very young, but she consented to our relationship and I stayed with her until she went to university. Actually, I paid for her university fees and she's a qualified nurse. On a few occasions, my wife did actually catch on that I was having a side chick and she did confront me. She also confronted my side chick. Let's call her Fatima. When Fatima was confronted, honestly, she was not remorseful because I promised her marriage and I was really in love with Fatima. I wasn't joking when I told her that I wanted to marry her. At one point where I was actually disappointed with myself, I only had very little money and I was supposed to pay my kids' school fees. Remember, I'm an older man, so I had kids who are also in university and I chose Fatima over my kids. But I knew I was making a great investment because she was about to be my wife one day. So I knew if she was okay, even our kids would in turn be fine. So I chose to pay for her school fees. My son ended up missing out on a semester in uni and he had to go back on it. Seeing my son at home really hurt me, but honestly I could only choose one. The money I had wasn't enough. So I chose their soon-to-be mother because I knew her well-being was our well-being. My wife eventually found out and this brought a lot of issues in our marriage. Actually, this was the beginning of our soon-to-be divorce. Despite finding out that I had been paying school fees for Fatima, she also found out that I had bought Fatima a car, which I did not tell her. No one knew, not even my kids, not my wife. But eventually she found out because she saw the receipts and everything that I was doing for Fatima. Immediately Fatima was done with school, I also opened her a nail salon. Fatima eventually started doing well and at least she was now legal, so we could go ahead with our marriage. However, I was not aware that Fatima actually did something for me to be so in love with her that I was choosing her over my kids. I eventually found out that Fatima was using some sort of roots in her lotion so that I could fall in love with her, but she asked for forgiveness and I understood because she was quite childish and she was still very young when I met her. Personally, I didn't believe in juju, so this is the main reason why I forgave her. But I did question myself as to why I was choosing Fatima over my kids. But to my defense, I thought I was doing a greater good because Fatima was about to be their stepmother, so I knew that her being fine means our home being more financially stable, hence my kids living a better quality life. Bear in mind that my wife was not educated as she had no form of education, so there was no way for me to even sponsor her at that old age. So all that I was doing was paying my school fees for my children and paying for Fatima. But one situation where I wasn't able to pay for both my children and Fatima, I chose Fatima over my kids. Sorry for the noise in the background. There's always construction going on where I live. Just like I had promised Fatima, I eventually married her and let me say that our marriage was quite happy. Though when it came to property settlement, I didn't give my wife anything and Fatima and I moved into the house that I was living with my children and my wife. My wife ended up moving back to her mother's place. This is where she went with all my kids. I was okay with her going with my kids because I wanted us to enjoy some peace and quiet because we were a new couple. I didn't want my new wife Fatima to feel overwhelmed by all the kids that I had. If I'm being honest, my kids actually didn't even want to move with me. Immediately they found out that I was leaving their mother because I wanted to marry another woman. Fatima and I lived quite happily, and let me say, despite Fatima being my side chick, Fatima was very loyal. When I met her, she had a boyfriend that she was willing to break up with because of me, which she did. After this, I didn't have any problem with men. Despite our age difference, Fatima was very loyal to me, and I believe she loved me just as much as I loved her. Let me give you a little backstory. In the house that my wife and I lived, we were both religious, but for her, she was more religious than I was. Our house was clean. There was nothing really weird about our house, and honestly we enjoyed the peace that we could have had as a couple. I guess you're wondering why my wife never fought for our property. It's because we had a traditional marriage, and traditional marriages typically in my country are not really protected by the law. So because I was the sole provider in the home that I shared with my ex-wife, I was able to secure most of our properties, and the main property that we had was a house, a car, which I bought Fatima, but it was in her name, and also a car that I used to drive. So most of those things still were returned to me, and my kids and my wife went to live with their grandparents. Fatima wasn't comfortable continuing living in the house. She wasn't comfortable to live in the house that I used to live in with my ex-wife and kids, but because I couldn't afford securing another house at this point, we still moved in there, and I made sure that Fatima had stopped doing all sorts of juju that she was doing. We became very prayerful because I needed God in this relationship. I didn't want to break it like my previous one. Despite being very prayerful, weird things started happening in our house with Fatima. The things that would happen is we would be sleeping in our bedroom and half of the house would start raining. It would start raining inside the house. Bear in mind, our roof was okay. It was not defective. Everything in the house was okay, but half of the house would start raining. Take, for instance, if it starts raining at the time that we're in the sitting room, the half of the house that includes the bedrooms and the bathrooms would start getting soaked with rain, like thunderstorms and everything, the same way that rain sounds, but coming from our roof down to the floor. It seemed as if the roof became the clouds, and then the floor of our house was like the ground where the rain was pouring. This was very weird, and after seeing this, we called a pastor who prayed for us. Everyone, including Fatima, was freaked out. So because of this, I knew Fatima had nothing to do with this. And Fatima was really in love with me, if I must say so myself, so I knew she had nothing to do with this. A few days later, we noticed again that when we woke up in the morning, we found that plates had served themselves on our dining table as if someone was about to have a meal. I mean, a side plate, cutlery, some juice on the table, but the plates had no food in them, as if someone had either eaten or was just about to start eating before they could put the food in the plate. This was extremely weird, and everyone was freaked out by this. We called our pastor again, and this time we chose a pastor from our church that was deemed to be more prayerful and stronger in faith. But still, weird things continued to happen. We would find plates served on the table. The same thing, it would rain in weird places within the house, but when we went outside, there was no rain. So it was only in our house. At this point, Fatima became very freaked out. And remember, Fatima is a younger girl. For me, I'm a grown man, so I wasn't extremely freaked out by this, but I knew something weird was happening. So Fatima actually left and said she had to go back to her parents because she couldn't take this anymore. The night that Fatima informed me that she was going to leave the following morning is the night that the most weird thing actually happened. This night, we heard people having a conversation in the dining, and when we came out, we saw what seemed like a meal was just being had by people who were about 6. There were 6 plates served, and things were littered around, like droppings from food and all those type of things were on the table. At this point, even I couldn't handle it anymore. I had had my best. I had had enough. In case you missed it, bear in mind that we did not shift from this house. This is the same house that I was living in with my kids and my wife, and nothing weird ever happened. When I married Fatima, we rearranged how things were in the house. Remember, Fatima was not happy about moving into the house that I was living with my ex-wife and kids. So we rearranged a few things just to make it look a bit different and did some sort of new decor. But every time we'd hear creepy things, some days we'd actually find that some of the things have gone back to the positions that my ex-wife had left them at. This is the most weird thing I have ever experienced, and Fatima seems very scared, so I cannot blame her. To be honest, I'm suspecting my ex-wife. I think she has something to do with this. What's a bit confusing and conflicting for me is the fact that my ex-wife was very prayerful. I don't think she's one to do this because I knew her for a while. We had been married for more than 25 years. I don't think she has the audacity to do this. So I'm also suspecting it's either Fatima's karma is coming back for all the juju that she used to use on my ex-wife so that I could leave her, or either I'm having some sort of karma paying back for everything I did to my wife and kids. How would you solve this situation? Bear in mind, I love Fatima. Anyway, I don't know what I would do in that situation, but I think his ex-wife didn't deserve all the treatment that he gave her. I feel for his kids who had to miss out on certain semesters in school. This is just terrible. I don't know what happened, how he lost the love he had for his wife. It was Fatima's juju. I don't really understand. This man wants advice about what he should do. Personally, I think the marriage with Fatima, no, it just doesn't cut it for me. What would you say about this situation?